Alright, look at number 1. In a particular city there are 51 buildings of historical interest. The following table represents the ages of these buildings given the nearest 50 years. Write down lower and upper boundary values. State the widths for class intervals. Illustrate histogram. Estimate the number of buildings. Okay, so I'm going to build a histogram. First thing I'm looking for is I got gaps. And I know they run to the nearest 50, and it's not a big surprise that there's going to be 50 between each gap. So what I'm going to do is take half of that 50 and put it on each side. So this is going to go, my boundary is actually going to be 25 to 175, and then 175 to 325. And this is going to be 325 to 475. And then my last one is going to be 475 to 625. So now the next thing I'm going to do is, it says the largest number of buildings. Well, that's this class that's got 18, and its boundary is 175 to 325. I'm going to write that down. And then B, it says state the widths of the 4 class intervals. So the class width for each one of these, that's going to be 150. I can do this a couple different ways. I can take the numbers in the table, 150 minus 50, and then add the 25 on each side, so that's going to give me 150. Or I can actually take the boundaries and subtract them, the real boundaries. So 175 minus 25 is 150, and 325 minus 175 is 150. And you should do it for all of them, but in this case they turn out to all be 150. Now the next thing is I'm going to draw a histogram, so I need to know what frequency density. And frequency density is equal to the frequency divided by the class width. So luckily you already figured out the class width, and all we've got to do now is take 15 and divide by 150, and I'm going to get 0.10. And then 18 divided by 150, and I'm going to get 0.12. And then I'm going to take 12 divided by 150, and I'm going to get 0.08. And then I'm going to take 6 divided by 150, and I'm going to get 0.04. Those are my frequency densities. I'm going to need those. That's going to be on my y-axis for my histogram. So I'm just going to circle those. And now I look at my graph. It's a little too close. I'm going to scooch it over. And now I'm going to go ahead and make my scale. And since my smallest number is 0.04 and it goes up to 0.112, we're going to use these units here. And then since I go from 0 to 600, I'm going to go by hundreds. And then I make sure I label both my axis, frequency density for the y-axis, and then this is going to be the building age of in years. And now all I got to do is put together my my histogram by using my, making my rectangles. So I look at the actual boundaries, and these are what is going to go on my graph. And so my columns are going to be between 25 and 175, and they're going to go up to 0.10. That's my first one. So I make those marks here. I've got 25 and 175, and then it's up there, and then all I'm going to do is draw my lines. And the next one, that's going to go from 175. Keep in mind, it should be continuous. There should never be any gaps between these bars. So it goes from 175 to 325. And that's going to be at 0.12. So let's go ahead and draw this line up here, go all the way over to 325, come down. Awesome. Now the next one, that's going to go from 325 to 475. So I make that line. It's going to go up to 0.08. So I draw that. And then my next column is going to go from 475 to 625, and that's going to go 0.04. And there I've got that. And there's my histogram. Sometimes it's tempting to color in the bars. I would just leave it like this. There's no reason to waste your time doing that. So C graph, C. Now D, it says estimate the number of buildings that are between 250 and 400 years old. So if I go to my x-axis, that's where it's talking about age. And so I go over there and I find 250. Well, I'm going to mark that. Let's see, I'm going to mark that, I think, in red. And so what I'm going to end up with here is basically 2 rectangles. You'll see this skinny one right here, this one right here, and when I'm going to use the fact that frequency density is equal to frequency over class width. Well, if I multiply class width on both sides, frequency is equal to class width times frequency density. So the frequency density is the height of that rectangle, and the class width is the base of that rectangle. And so all I got to do is multiply those two things, and that's going to be the area, and that's going to give me the frequency. So from here to here, that's going to be 250 to 325, that's 75. 75 times 0.12, that's the frequency density, and that's going to give me 9. And then I look at the other rectangle, this other one that I've got, the next to it, that's going to go from 325 to 400, and 325 to 400 is also going to be 75. And so I'm going to make 75 and multiply that times its frequency density, and its frequency density is going to be 0.08. So 75 times 0.08, that's going to equal 6. And then when I add those two together, that's going to give me the total frequency of 15. So the answer to this question, part D, is there's going to be roughly, approximately, 15 buildings between the ages of 250 and 400 years old. All right, I hope that helped. Thanks for watching.